coaster and give them a review.
Even if I don't remember the ride that much.
Rate it 1 to 10 and then we'll do it all again. Gonna rank and review every coaster.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Mario. This is a channel all about amusement park type stuff, but mostly coasters. And today, in my never-ending journey to rank and review every single coaster I have ever been on, we're going to be talking about Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you to my subscribers. You guys are awesome. And to anybody that's not subscribed to this channel, you better subscribe or else your timbers will never be Mystic. But without any further ado, let's review. Mystic Timbers is a wooden coaster manufactured by GCI with a maximum height of 109 feet, a top speed of 53 miles per hour, a track length of 3,265 feet, and a ride duration of roughly 46 seconds from the end of the lift hill to the beginning of the final brakes. And these are pretty standard stats for a wooden coaster whose ride experience is not so standard. Now, unfortunately, my one and only visit to Kings Island came on a Saturday in the middle of summer, so I do only have one ride on Mystic Timbers. So I can't tactically pick apart and analyze every little detail, but still I think I got a good feel for this ride. Now, I don't think my one ride was one of the better rides that you can have on Mystic Timbers, because I rode it in the middle of the day, and wooden coasters tend to go a lot faster as the day goes on. And I mean, you can even just compare these two POVs, both from Kings Island, filmed just a couple of months apart, and the one on the left finishes the course a whole 3 seconds faster than the one on the right. So it is very possible, and I do think that I just got one of the slower rides on Mystic Timbers. However, this one ride was luckily in the back row, which I hear is the best place to sit, so the back row is what I'm going to be basing my review on. But before we do get on the ride, let's talk a little bit about the off-ride experience. Mystic Timbers, at least what you can see of it, looks very nice. This ride is themed to an abandoned lumber company, and the theming is pretty decent. The ride entrance sign looks great. The entry altogether is aesthetically pleasing, and the queue looks nice as well. Unfortunately, however, a majority of the line is completely uncovered and exposed to the sun, aside from a couple of shade structures, which makes waits on a busy summer day, like when I visited, pretty rough. Thankfully, the ride does tend to have very fast operations, so you at least won't be burning in the sun for too long. The ride's pleasant theming extends to your on-ride experience, as the ride vehicles look like trucks. These trains are, of course, GCI's Millennium Flyers, which are super comfortable and help combat any sort of bumpiness from this being a wooden coaster. Once you board this ride, you'll dispatch out of the station into a wonky pre-lift section, not too dissimilar from RMC pre-lifts. However, you don't experience any sort of airtime or laterals. These tiny hills just serve to be more interesting than straight track, and they do that. You go up the lift at varying speeds, and you actually get to listen to some themed audio telling you to turn around and some other mumbled mumbo jumbo that it's kind of hard to make out before cresting your first drop. Now, even in the back row, I did not feel that this drop gave all too much airtime, but it did provide a decent amount of laterals as you twist a considerable amount on your descent. That drop's followed immediately by a left turn and a hill up into another slight left turn. In the back row, this offered no airtime. Going down the hill after the turn was the same thing. There may have been some floater airtime on the descent of this hill, but it definitely wasn't noticeable enough for me to remember it. The most notable thing that I remember about this first hill turn hill thing is that I was just disappointed by the lack of airtime because you're traveling so fast. The fact that you're not flying out of your seat is really mind-boggling to me. However, the ride experience is all uphill from here, metaphorically speaking, of course. You turn into an elongated yet low to the ground speed hill that definitely does provide good floater airtime, and then another small hill following that does the same. You then head into a series of small half hills intertwined with rapid paced turns that just feel completely out of control. Again, I don't particularly remember there being a considerable amount of airtime. Whatever airtime there was very brief, even if it was very strong airtime. But the main thing that really stood out to me about this section is it just feels wildly out of control. And since so many of the turns come before you finish completing an entire hill, it really catches you off guard and is very unpredictable for a first-time rider. Because instead of just going, oh, here's a hill, and then a turn, and then a hill, and then a turn, it's like, hill, nope, just kidding, it's a turn now, oh, it's a hill again, there's a turn, nope, it's a hill now, oh, nope, it's a turn. Like, it throws you all over the place in the most enjoyable way possible. And I would say even though the airtime may not have been particularly noteworthy, the lateral forces throwing you side to side were definitely very enjoyable and prominent. And as you've made your way to the furthest point out into the woods, you turn around inside of a tunnel and make your return trip. Now, one thing that I failed to mention at this point is how secluded the coaster is, and I think that greatly contributes to the ride feeling a bit out of control. There's not a whole lot of life around you. I mean, trees are life, but there's not a whole lot of civilization, if you will, around you. So more or less, this ride does feel quite secluded, and that further contributes to your inability to predict where you are traveling, which is yet another thing that makes this ride feel out of control. Coming out of that turnaround, you hit a couple more hills, and these are more similar to your standard hills that you'd find on any coaster, but they do provide a decent amount of floater time. What did I just say? Floater time? What the f is floater time? Did you mean floater air time? Although I would have to say, again, much like the first hill, I was slightly disappointed by how weak the airtime was. You quickly hit a fast turn followed by an off-axis airtime hill, which those are always great fun, a nice change of pace from your standard airtime hills. Speaking of standard airtime hills though, that's the next thing you'll hit after navigating a left-hand turn. And then you head into one of the wonkiest yet one of the most fun parts of the ride. You go into another off-axis airtime hill that banks left just like the previous one, but the element that follows that is not another outer banked airtime hill, it is just a banked section of straight track. So in this little combo element, you do get airtime while tilting to the left, and then you come back down to the ground, and then randomly just get turned to your side without getting any airtime. And I'm not complaining about that at all, by the way. It is a really interesting combo that is just completely unexpected, and it's something that doesn't really exist on too many coasters. It sort of gives like vintage roller coaster trick track vibes, if you will. So anyway, that combo element really catches you off guard and yet again throws you around side to side before flying up into a very rapid left-hand turn and flying into the final brakes that are also very heavily banked to the right. This is super weird, but again, I love it. It's just like, why is this like this? I don't know, but it's interesting and fun and different, so I'm enjoying it. Now, this does conclude the coastery part of your ride, but there is actually one last theming element, and that is the shed. Now, I do remember around the time that this ride opened up, many of people were disappointed by what was in the shed, and that was certainly due to Kings Island's marketing around the shed. They tried to hype it up as this really mysterious, intriguing, and exciting aspect of the ride, when in reality it is just a very, very small show scene to make waiting on the brake run significantly more entertaining than just sitting on an empty brake run. So I personally was not disappointed by this ride because I didn't care about the hype of the shed and I already knew what was in the shed before going on the ride. So I do have to say that I do thoroughly enjoy this little bit of theming. This theming, by the way, is some music playing, the lights flickering, and then one of 3 monsters busting through these shed doors to come attack you before you turn into the station. Nothing mind-blowing, but again, much, 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 much better than nothing. But what would I rank this coaster? Well, from my one limited experience on this ride, my main takeaways were the airtime was definitely a little overhyped. I don't know if I mentioned this, but another thing that the park was heavily marketing was the plethora of airtime moments. And while there may have been a lot of airtime moments, they weren't very standout or impactful, but by far the best aspect of this ride is the pacing. You fly through the entire ride. I mean, it is just element after element after element, giving you no time to breathe. Really, the only part of the ride that really lets up is the turnaround, and even that is in a tunnel and at a relatively high speed. So the whole ride, you just have a complete sense of being utterly out of control. control. So all that said, I give this coaster an 8.5 out of 10. There's almost no doubt in my mind that I would rate this coaster higher if I were to rewrite it. I could easily see this being in my top 25, but for now, out of the 229 coasters I've been on, it sits at number 39, which is still really not bad, and I definitely look forward to, at some point in the future, getting back out to Kings Island and getting another ride on this amazing coaster. But that's it for my thoughts on the ride. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it in the comments down below. Let me know if anything I said was contradictory to your experiences. If you've been on this ride at all, you probably have more rides on it than I do, so I'd love to hear from you. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this, and make sure to tune in next time where I'll be talking about whatever this wheel lands on.